The next topic is piecemeal distribution. While solving various problems on dissolution of a firm, it has been assumed that all the assets are realized immediately on the date of dissolution and all liabilities are paid off or settled on the same date. But in actual practice, it seldom happens. The assets are sold gradually to realize the best price for them. Similarly, the liabilities are paid off gradually depending upon the amount realized from the sale of assets. See, so far we have seen the dissolution of firm accounts. We have written assets realized, okay? In the credit side of the realization account, it comes, okay? Assets realized 5 lakh rupees, 10 lakh rupees, like that we have entered. But practically, it is not possible for the firm to sell all the assets immediately. The firm may have plant and machinery, land and building, plant and machinery. Like that, it has several assets, furniture. So, it is not possible for the firm to sell all the assets at once. Okay, it takes time. Through brokers, they have to sell the assets. Okay, so it never happens. It is not possible for the firm to sell the assets immediately. It is sold gradually to realize the best price for them. Okay, they are waiting for the time to get best price. It will take some time to sell all the assets in the firm. Like that, the liabilities are paid off gradually depending upon the amount realized from the sale of assets. It is highly impossible for the firm to sell all the assets. Suppose the firm has 10 lakh rupees worth of assets. Immediately it cannot sell all the 10 lakh rupees worth of assets. And so the first time it may sell. The land may be sold, okay? Land may be sold for 5 lakh rupees. And then after some times, they will sell the plant and machinery for 2 lakh rupees. Then furniture may be sold next 3 lakhs, okay? Like that, they realize the amount gradually from the sale of assets. So, the first realization of assets, a firm has 5 lakh rupees. So, a firm is able to settle to the extent of 5 lakh rupees, not more than that of this 5 lakh. Second realization, this is first realization, second realization and third realization. So, second realization, a firm gets 2 lakh rupees. So, it is able to settle 2 lakhs worth of the liabilities. The third realization, it gets 3 lakh rupees. That firm can settle only 3 lakh rupees worth of liabilities. Okay. So, assets are sold gradually. Like that, liabilities are settled gradually depending upon, it depends, amount realized from the sale of assets. Okay. It depends on how much amount the firm has. That determines the settlement of the liabilities. Okay. As a result, the final profit or loss on realization cannot be ascertained until all the assets are sold and all the liabilities completely paid off. The amount payable to partners, that is after the payment to outside liabilities and partners loan, cannot be ascertained unless the total profit or loss on realization is known. So, already I told it's not possible for the firm to sell all the assets at once and settle all the liabilities immediately. Okay, it takes time. Okay, so first they settle the outside creditors, then they settle the partners loan. After the settlement of partners loan, they will consider the partners capital. Okay, so they have to wait for a long time, partners. Okay, so it cannot be ascertained how much money is available to settle the partners. Okay, that cannot be ascertained unless the total profit or loss on realization is known. In such a case, the partners have to wait unduly for a long time till the last asset is disposed of and capital repayment is made. Okay, they have to wait for a long time, unduly for a long time, unnecessarily. It is not a reasonable one. Okay, unduly for a long time till the last asset is disposed. The firm has many assets, no, they need not wait till the asset is disposed of. If they wait till the asset is sold, they will have to suffer a lot due to financial problem. In order to relieve the partners from financial constraint, they should pay as and when the firm has funds left with it after the payment of all outside liabilities. First, they settle the outside liabilities and then they settle the partners loan, and finally they come to partners capital. Okay, so partners capital is repaid as and when the firm has funds left with it. If the firm has 10,000 rupees after the payment of outside liabilities and partners loan, that has to be distributed among the partners according to their capital contribution. We have to find out how much excess capital is paid by the partners. That we should capital. Okay, let's see. When assets are realized gradually, the following order of payment is adopted. Payment to creditors and other external liability. Payment of partners loan ratably. If any amount remains after making the above payment, this is utilized in payment of capital to the partners. Their capital can be repaid only if the firm is able to discharge all its creditors and external liabilities and loan. If the firm has insufficient amount, then it cannot repay the partners' capital. Methods of piecemeal distribution. There are two methods under piecemeal distribution. They are proportionate capital bar surplus capital method, or another one is maximum loss method. Let's see what is proportional capital or surplus capital method and what is maximum loss method. First, let's see proportionate or surplus capital or highest relative capital method. Under this method, the amount payable to partners whose capital of relatively in excess of their profit sharing ratio is calculated. Here we are comparing the profit sharing ratio with their capital amount. Okay, so first we have to find out which partner capitals are relatively in excess of their profit sharing ratio. Okay, we are comparing the capital amount with their profit sharing ratio, and this next step we have to find out the which partner contributes excess of their profit sharing ratio, contributes more capital than that of their profit sharing ratio. That should be calculated. This should be done by dividing each partner's capital by the respecting profit sharing ratio. The lowest capital after this division contributes the basis capital from which the remaining hypothetical capitals are calculated. So here, first step we are comparing the profit sharing ratio with their capital contribution. Okay, and second step we have to find out the base capital. Okay, so the basis capital is nothing but the lowest capital of a particular partner. A, B, C, maybe three partners. So B may be contributed less amount. Okay, we are comparing their profit sharing ratio with the capital contribution. If E contributes a lesser amount than that of his profit sharing ratio, then his capital is considered as basis capital. Okay, first we compare the P&L, that is profit and loss ratio, with their capital contribution. Then we find out the basis capital, and then between the other partners whose capital are relatively higher, excess on the basis of profit sharing ratio, between themselves is found. So the other partners who are paid excess amount on the basis of profit sharing ratio, we have to compare the other partners' excess capital. Okay, if there are three partners A, B, C, B's capital is a basis capital, the remaining partner is A and C, their excess capital should be calculated. Okay, so as and when cash is available for partners, the excess capital are paid off, keeping in mind the priority for their respective excess capital. When excess capital are paid off, the balance of amount is distributed among the partners in profit sharing ratio. When all the realization have been distributed, the unpaid amount of balance of capital will represent the loss on realization. So first we have to calculate the basis capital, then we have to pay the excess capital which are contributed by A and C. If we settle the excess capital that are contributed by A and C, the remaining amount should be shared between A, B, C. After the settlement of the excess capital of A and C, then the remaining amount should be shared between A, B, C in the P&L ratio. Okay. See, after the settlement of the A, B, C, if the firm is not able to, in many cases under the dissolution, the firm is not in a position to settle the capital of all the partners. In that case, the remaining amount which is unpaid is nothing but loss on realization. The remaining amount unpaid, the balance unpaid or loss on realization, that represents the balance due on partners is nothing but loss on realization. The second method is maximum loss method. Under this method, it is assumed that at each stage of realization of assets, the remaining unrealized assets are worthless. They treat at each stage, first realization, the firm sold plant and machinery for 5 lakh rupees. The remaining assets, they considered the remaining assets are worthless. Okay. In other words, at every stage of realization, it is presumed that there would be no further realization. They assumed that, the firm assumed that there would be no further realization. Okay. Second realization and the third realization, they, as per their perception, there would be no further realization. This is the amount which they have in their hand. By comparing the total amount due to partners as capital with the amount available, the maximum loss is ascertained. Okay. So, 5 lakh rupees. Okay, 5 lakh, the creditor is 8 lakh rupees. Okay, so the 3 lakh rupees is the maximum loss. In that way, they ascertain the maximum loss of a firm. The maximum loss is calculated at every stage of realization and distributed among the partners in their profit sharing ratio. The balance left on the capital account will be the amount payable to the partners. Each and every stage, they are calculating the realization loss or the maximum loss, and they distributed the maximum loss among the partners in their profit sharing ratio. The balance remaining amount is nothing but the amount payable to the partners. This is another method. This is known as maximum loss method. When the maximum loss is deducted from capital, each and every stage we distribute the maximum loss, that is deducted from the capital. And if the capital account of any partner shows debit balance, If a partner has debit balance of capital account, he is known as insolvent, okay? And his deficiency is to be charged to the solvent partners in their capital ratio as per the Garner versus Murray rule. I hope you all know Garner versus Murray rule. There are two rules. First rule, the solvent partner should bring cash equivalent to their share of realization loss. And the second one, they should bear the deficiency of the insolvent partner. Solvent partner should bear the insolvency of the deficiency of the insolvent partner according to their capital ratio. Okay, here we have to apply that ratio, apply that rule, Garner versus Murray rule. The credit balances of capital account of partners would now be equal to the amount of cash available for distribution. When we do the problem practically, you will understand the concept. At the next stage of realization, the opening balances of capital would be the amount of capital as reduced by the amount already paid. The same process has to be applied in cases of subsequent realization. It is obvious that before this state of affairs is reached, current realization expenses, creditors and partners' loan must be paid off. Question number 1, absolute surplus calculation. We have to find out under the proportionate capital method. First step, we have to find out the excess capital contribution by the partners. How much money they are contributing excessively towards the capital than that of the other partners. That is the first basis capital we have to calculate. From that basis capital, we have to find out the extra money which is paid by the partners, which is contributed by the partners towards capital is nothing but a surplus. And from that surplus, we have to find out the absolute surplus. Let's see how to calculate the absolute surplus. A partnership firm has 3 partners, A, B, C, with capitals of 40,000, 20,000, 20,000 respectively. The partners share profit in the ratio of 3:2:1. You are required to calculate absolute surplus capital under proportionate capital method. Let's see how to calculate absolute surplus. First, capital. Capital contributed by all the partners should be written like this. A, B, C. What is their profit sharing ratio? 3:2:1. A contributed 40,000 rupees. B contributed 20,000 rupees. C contributed 20,000 rupees. Then the next step, we have to calculate basis capital. Okay, to calculate basis capital, we have to compare the profit sharing ratio with their capital contribution and find out per share value. Okay, here his share in the firm is 3. A, B's share in the firm is 2. C's share in the firm is 1. Okay, so what is the per share value we have to calculate? 40 for A, 40,000 divided by 3. So, per share he is paid 13,333. He paid 13,000 for one part. Okay, for 3 part he paid 40,000. So, for one part he paid 13,333. Then B, 20,000. His share is 2. So, for one share, 10,000 rupees. C, 20,000 divided by 1, 20,000. Who is the least capital contributor? B is the least capital contributor. Okay. So, we should consider B's capital as basis capital. Okay. the basic capital is B's capital. Okay. Then we have to deduct capital in profit ratio taking B's capital as basis. B's capital, basis capital is how much? 10,000. So 10,000 into 3. According to the B's capital, the basis for one share, he paid 10,000 rupees. So we are consider B's capital as basis. And so what would be the capital of A for 3 shares? 10,000 into 3, 30,000. Then B is a base capital, and so we should not write anything here. Then for 1, the basis capital, 1 share. For 1 share, the value is 10,000. So 10,000. As per the B's capital contribution, 1 share value is 10,000. Okay. So he contributed 20,000 for 2 part of the share. Okay. So for 1 share, 1 part of the share is 10,000. Here we have written 10,000. So the surplus, actual capital, as per the basis capital, A should contribute only 30,000, but he has contributed 40,000 rupees. Okay. So surplus is how much? 10,000 rupees. A's surplus is 10,000. Then go to C. As per the basis capital of B, he should contribute 10,000 rupees. But he has contributed 20,000 rupees. According to profit and loss ratio, we have calculated the basis capital. Okay, the excess is how much? 10,000 rupees. So, in this problem, the surplus capital is contributed by both A and C. A contributed excessively 10,000 rupees. C contributed 10,000 rupees as excess capital. Then the next step, we have to find out between A and C, who has paid excess capital, who is paid more than that of the other one, whether A or C, we have to calculate. Okay. So 10,000. 10,000 for how many share? For 3 share. Okay. 3 part of his share, his surplus is 10,000 rupees. Okay. So 10,000 divided by 3, that is 3,333. Then C, 1 part, the surplus is how much? 10,000 rupees. 10,000 divided by 1 is 10,000. The least one is what? A's surplus is least or capital, surplus capital least is 3,333. That should be considered to find out absolute surplus. Absolute surplus means a partner who paid excess capital than that of the others. Okay. So 3,333 rupees is here basis capital. Okay. So for 1 share, he should bring 3,333. That is enough. But how much surplus is there? 10,000 is there. So if we deduct 3,333 from 10,000, we will get 6,667. So after the settlement of sundry creditors and partners loan, if the amount is available in the firm, first you should settle C to the extent of 6,667. After the settlement of 6,667 to C, then it goes to A and C settlement. After the settlement of these two, then it will settle A, B, C in their profit sharing ratio. This is the way to calculate absolute surplus. Okay. he should be given preference. C should be given preference because his capital contribution is higher than that of others to the extent of 6,667. Here the capital is calculated on the basis of profit sharing ratio. Second problem, X, Y and Z are partners. Their profit sharing ratio is 5:3:1. Capital is 1 lakh, 30,000, 90,000 respectively. Calculate absolute surplus. This is the solution for the second problem. As usual, first we have to write the capital of all the partners. X capital is 1 lakh rupees, Y capital is 30,000, Z capital is 90,000. So the first step we have to calculate the basis capital. On the basis of the P&L ratio, we have to find out the basis capital. That means we compare the P&L ratio with the capital contribution. What is their ratio? X is to Y is to Z is 5:3:2. X share is 5, Y share is 3, Z share is 2. For 5 shares, he brings 1 lakh rupees. So, if we divide 1 lakh by 5, his one share value is 20,000 rupees. Then, for Y, for 3 shares, he brings 30,000. So, one share value is 10,000. For one part of his share, he has brought 10,000 rupees. Then Z 90,000 divided by 2, 45,000 rupees. We have to select the least capital contributor. Okay. So the least capital should be considered as the basis capital in order to find out the surplus. Here the least one is Y. Okay. So less capital in profit share ratio taking Y's capital as basis 10,000 rupees. Therefore, the share of X as basis capital is 10,000 into 5. That is 50,000 rupees. Then Y's capital we don't need to write because Y's capital is a base capital. Then for Z, for 2 into 10,000, 20,000 is enough. Okay. But how much he has brought? 90,000 he has brought. So extra amount, surplus he has contributed towards the firm is 70,000 rupees. Here the surplus amount is 50,000 rupees. The surplus of X is 50,000, Z is 70,000. Then the next step, between them, who is paid excess amount? X or Z? We have to calculate. For that, we have to divide the surplus by their profit sharing ratio. 50,000 by 5, 10,000. 70,000 by 2, 35,000. The least amount is 10,000. So, as usual, the least amount should be taken as the basis capital. And so, X capital, surplus capital is considered as a basis capital. Okay. So, less surplus capital as per profit sharing ratio between X and Y. Taking X surplus capital as basis, 10,000 for one share. How many shares is that? Has 2 shares. So 2 into 10,000 is 20,000. But surplus is how much? 70,000. So from 70,000 we have to deduct 20,000. So excess amount which is paid by the Z over the X is 50,000. When we compare X and Z paid 50,000 rupees more than that of X. So, when we make payment after the settlement of creditors and loan, external liabilities and loan, the balance amount should be paid to capital, settlement of capital. Okay. When settling the capital account of the partners, first the firm should consider Z. The first payment should be made to Z to the extent of 50,000 rupees. Okay. For that purpose only, we have calculated the absolute surplus. First step, we have calculated the surplus, and the second base capital, and then we have calculated the surplus. Then from that surplus capital, again we calculated the basis to find out the absolute surplus. The meaning of this one is among the three, Z paid higher than that of the others. Then after the settlement of 50,000, then we have to settle the X and Z. After the settlement of 50,000 and 70,000, then if the amount is available in the firm, that should be distributed among X, Y, Z in the ratio of 5:3:2. Next problem. PQR, where partners sharing profit and losses in the ratio of 3:2:1. Their capital stood at the time of dissolution 54,000, 40,000, 25,000 respectively. Calculate absolute surplus. First step, we have to write the capital as it is. Okay. So here we have to write the partner's name with the share. Okay. P's share is 3/6. Q's share is 2/6 and R share is 1/6. Their capital amount is 54,000, 40,000 and 25,000. Then the next step, we have to find out the basis capital. Okay. To calculate or to ascertain the basis capital, we have to compare the capital contribution with the profit sharing ratio. For 54,000, for 3 shares, his share is 3/6. For 3 share, he brought 54,000. Therefore, for 1 share, his capital contribution is 18,000. Then for 2 shares, Q has brought 40,000. And so for 1 share, his capital contribution is 20,000. Then R, 25,000 he brought for 1 share. His share of profit and losses is 1. So 25,000. The least one is R is 25,000, Q is 20,000, P is 18,000. The least one is 18,000. This is considered as, this should be taken as basis capital. Okay, we have taken the P's capital as basis. Then P's capital, if we take P's capital, we don't need to here write at 54,000 because we have taken P's capital as basis. Then Q and R. Then for Q, he has 2 shares. Okay. So 18,000 into 2, that is 36,000. So how much he contributed? 40,000. But according to profit sharing ratio, according to basis capital, he would brought 36,000. That will be enough. But he has brought 40,000. The surplus is 4,000 here. Here R, let's see the case of R. R brought 25,000. As per the basis capital, 18,000 will be enough. 1 share is 18,000. So if we deduct 18,000 from 25,000, the surplus is 7,000 rupees. So the first step, we have calculated the basis capital. Second step, from basis capital, we have calculated the surplus. The surplus amount that is brought by Q and R is 4,000 rupees and 7,000 rupees. Then the next step, we have to calculate the absolute surplus. That means the surplus of Q is 4,000 rupees, the surplus of R is 7,000 rupees. Between these two, who paid higher amount than that of the others? It may be either Q or R. Let's find out. Okay. Then 4,000 rupees is the surplus. That should be divided by his share. If we divide 4,000 by 2, the basis is 2,000 rupees. For one share, he paid 2000. His surplus is 2000. Then 7,000 should be divided by 1. So the surplus is 7,000 rupees. Which one is least? Again, the least one is 2,000. So this should be considered as basis. Okay. 2,000 is considered as basis. So Q's capital is considered as basis. And so for one share, 1 into 2,000. His share is 1. Therefore, 1 into 2,000 is 2,000 rupees. 2,000 rupees is enough, but he has brought how much surplus? 7,000 rupees. So, 7,000 minus 2,000 is 5,000. This is absolute surplus. Okay. That means after making payment to the external liabilities and the partner's loan, they have to settle, the firm has to settle partner's capital. While settling the partner's capital, the first preference should be given to R to the extent of 5,000. After the settlement of 5,000 to R, it should settle the Q and R. Finally, to the extent of 4,000 rupees and 7,000 rupees. Then after that, after the settlement of Q and R, they should settle. If the amount is available, it should be distributed among P, Q, R in the ratio of 3:2:1. In this way, we have to calculate basis capital, surplus and absolute surplus. From the following, distribute cash under proportionate capital method. Capital of partners A 20,000, B 10,000. Profit sharing ratio is 3:2. First installment cash is 5,000. Second installment cash is 2,000. Third installment cash is 1,000 rupees. You are asked to distribute cash under the proportionate capital method. Two partners are there, A and B. Their profit sharing ratio is 3:1. First you have to calculate surplus, then you have to basis capital, then you have to calculate surplus, then the next step you have to calculate the absolute surplus, and finally you have to make distribution of cash under the proportionate capital method. Let's see how to solve this problem. Statement showing calculation of absolute surplus. Here we have only two partners, and so it is very easy to calculate absolute surplus. So A's part is 3, share of profit is 3, B's share of profit is 2. For 3 part, he has brought 20,000. A brought 20,000, B brought 10,000 for 2 shares. Okay. So 20,000 divided by, if we divide 20,000 by 3, one share amount is 6,666.66. Here one share amount is 5,000. So the least capital is 5,000. So we have to take B's capital as base capital. So 5,000 rupees. So as base capital, the capital which should be brought by A is 3 into 5,000, 15,000 rupees. But he has brought how much? 20,000. So the surplus is 5,000. So here we don't need to write 10,000 rupees because we have taken B's capital as the base capital. So this is the absolute surplus. Surplus becomes the absolute surplus because the firm has only 2 partners. Okay. The meaning of this one is, why we have calculated absolute surplus, the firm, after the settlement of external liabilities and the partner's loan, when they make settlement to the partner's capital, they have to give first preference to A to the extent of 5,000 rupees. Let's see how they are distributing the cash. This is the distribution of cash. Total realization. There is no opening balance, cash balance and all. Nil. A's capital amount is 20,000. B's capital amount is 10,000. First realization is how much? 5,000 rupees. That 5,000 rupees should paid to A because the absolute surplus should be settled first. Okay, so 5,000. The absolute surplus is how much? 5,000 rupees. A has got absolute surplus to the extent of 5,000 rupees. That should be settled. Okay, so first the firm settled 5,000 rupees. The firm has only 5,000 rupees in its hand and it settled A 5,000 rupees. So the balance due after the first realization is 20,000 minus 5,000, 15,000. Here B doesn't get any amount. So the same 10,000 is balance due to B. And second realization is 2,000 rupees. Absolute surplus is over and so we can distribute A and B in their profit sharing ratio. The profit sharing ratio of A is to B is 3:2. So if we divide or distribute the cash of 2,000 rupees according to the profit sharing ratio, A will be paid 1,200 rupees, B will be paid 800 rupees. 2,000 into 3/5. So 400 into 3 is 1,200 A. Then B, 2,000 into 2/5. So 400 into 2, 800 rupees we have distributed according to profit sharing ratio. The remaining amount is nothing but the balance due after second realization. After second realization, the balance due is 13,800 and 9,200. Okay. Then the third realization amount is 1,000 rupees. That 1,000 rupees should be shared between A and B in their profit sharing ratio. So 600, 400. So 1,000 into 3/5. Here the 1,000 into 2/5. 600 A will get, 400 B will get. So the remaining balance is nothing but unpaid or amount due or loss on realization. The loss on realization, A share of loss on realization to A is 13,200, B is 8,800. In this style, we have to distribute the cash. Hope you understand the problem.